I think freaking Paramus, New Jersey is a destination, dude. I mean, if you make it one, I think that's totally overrated, dude. I'm like a little like I'm losing it on some of the shit that's going on. Like, I mean, I've been guiding for 25 years, okay? I mean, I've been a few places, and am I the most, I'm like, president of the overeducated guide anglers club, like slacker.
That was Rachel Finn sharing her opinion on the destination fly fishing craze and the effects of social media. The more of these I do, the better it gets. This is episode number 72 of the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today. We'll help you on your fly fishing journey with classic stories covering steelhead fishing, fly tying, and much more.
How's it going, everyone? Thanks for stopping by the Fly Fishing Show. Today's episode is sponsored by the Wet Fly Swing Member Society. The Member Society provides exclusive discounts and access to innovative products and services from our member partner companies. Head over to wetflyswing.com/members to check out some of the companies who are on board. Plus, you can support the show at one convenient location. Today's episode, I talked to Rachel Finn, the head guide at the Hungry Trout on the Ausable River. We talk about which people need shot callers, the tackle shop that was similar to the tackle shop I grew up in on the opposite end of the country, and what the hang is all about. Rachel shares a few great stories about Lefty Cray, including some catch-up tips, Big Herb and his stogies, and sympathy for the devil. Don't miss this one as Rachel breaks the current wet fly swing record for language in an episode. So, without further ado, here's Rachel Finn.
How's it going, Rachel?
Pretty good, Dave. How are you today?
Good. Yeah, it's good to have you on here. I've got definitely, I know you've got a good background. We talked a little bit about it on email, fishing Alaska and around the country. But, I think we're going to dig into some of the stuff you've done back on the Ausable. And I guess maybe we could talk before we get into the species and things like that you cover. I know we just chatted about this, as far as not going too deep into your background, but maybe you
it's all good.
Give us a quick little, just kind of how you got started, where you're at, and then just how you came up to become the head guide of your current fly shop.
Okay. Let's just say this. I'm 57 years old, so I grew up in suburban Boston, Newton, Massachusetts. I'm actually sitting there today, not in Newton, but I'm close by. I'm visiting my family, and grew up here, very typical, American suburban experience. I did go to summer camp. Nobody in my family fished, but I was experienced and exposed to some fishing, not fly fishing, as a kid, a little bit, and I liked it. And then maybe 30 years went by, and 20 years rather, and a friend of mine, my current partner, husband, showed me how to fly fish when I was probably, my late 20s. I was an athlete growing up and in school, college, played 3 varsity sports for 4 years and blah, 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 all team sports. And when I got out of school, I really didn't know what to do. I was kind of like, now what do I do, man? So I got really, I'm a little obsessive, which is sort of a double negative right there. And I got into windsurfing, like big time, man. And I was all over the place, just not all over the place, but anything I could afford, which was basically the Northeast. And blah, 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 blah. I ended up having a back injury. And I was sort of, first time in my life, kind of sidelined, and Jeff was like, okay, I was up visiting him. I was living in New York City because I'm an artist, And I went to school and got a graduate degree from Yale and moved to New York City to seek fame and fortune, to be a famous artist. And meanwhile, I got my ass kicked, but it was great. I wouldn't trade it for the world. But I in between then, I would go up to the Adirondacks because he lived up there, and I hurt my back windsurfing. And I'm like, oh man, what am I going to do? And he's like, well, why don't you go fly fishing? And I was like, oh, and this is right when the movie had come out. Definitely. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that looks cool. You know, up to that point, man, I was fishing. I was like the book reading girlfriend. I can't even believe I say that now, because he's been fishing his whole life, you know, and learned to fly fish very young. But when we were together back then, he would basically troll like Lake Clear wobblers, you know, spoons and worms and stuff. And we'd, you know, go all flat water, no river fishing. And I was kind of like, well, what's so great about this, man? You know, I don't really get it, you know. But the minute I got in a river, I was like, oh, I get this. You know, this is awesome. And from that moment on, I was, you know, just smitten.
That's it. So
yeah, man,
that's cool. So Brad Pitt kind of did it again. Took another grabbed another.
Well, it was a little more than just Brad Pitt, but I'd like to think Robert Redford, really, because I'm older. You know, I'm like, he's my, you know, bohunk favorite. That's right. But Brad Pitt is no slouch either. But yeah, that was right around that time. So there was actually a cultural sort of sway in that direction as well. And then, you know, here I am in New York City trying to do the art thing. And I had, you know, tons of education, no skills that were marketable, you know, so I had all these funky jobs. You know, I was an artist assistant, or I was like painting fire escapes. I mean, I lived in this great loft building, you know, and then all of a sudden I got a job at a fly shop in New York. And that was where I kind of got, you know, sucked into the vortex, you know. And then I would go to the Adirondacks for the summer to visit Jeff, because he was up there. And I ended up getting a job at the Hungry Trout, because I needed a summer job, and they had just opened a fly shop there. And I went in. I'm like, dude, I don't know. I really don't know that much, but I could definitely handle this. And that's, you know, that was like 26 years ago.
Yep, just like that.
Yeah.
Like
I don't know about just like that, but whatever.
yeah. Wow. So, yeah, there's so much there. That's I mean, there's definitely some similar things to what we've heard on the show before, you know. But some definitely the Yale grad school. That's interesting. I do want to get in, you know, to the Ausable. Before we do, I've been hitting. It's funny you mentioned the athletics, because I've been asking this question at the end of the last few shows with my guests to say, hey, you know, what kind of sports did you do? And I've had everybody. Yeah. I had Denny Rickards on recently, and he said he was close to a professional, you know, almost played with Babe Ruth back in the day and all.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah, it was crazy. So, but I'm getting this thing like a bunch of fly fishers, a bunch of people that are.
What position did he play?
He was, let's see, I think he was third base. I believe it was third base. I can't remember. He played two, but and outfield too. Yeah, he was talking about gunning him in from outfield. But yeah. So, but there's this theme, like sports is a big thing that seems like people had this potential other career. What were your three sports?
Well, I was a big soccer player. That was probably my primary sport. And that started off when I was 10 years old. My entire family moved to Florence, Italy from suburban Boston. My father was in the shoe business. He's a shoe designer. And we moved to Florence, Italy in 1971 or 70 rather, whatever, long time ago. And I ended up at this amazing school there that was an American school in the city of Florence, and it was fantastic. It was in this incredible villa up on top of the hill. It was called Bello Sguardo, which means beautiful view, and it's now a luxury hotel actually, but it was like a 14th century villa with a beautiful tower and overlooking the city. I mean, like the money view, you know. And here we were, a bunch of, all kinds of people. It wasn't all Americans, but it was a really eclectic group of people in this school. It's very small, as you can imagine. I was like 120 kids from nursery to 12th grade. And a lot of expats, a lot of business people, whatever. But anyways, you know, I was a real tomboy jock kid, and I played, and I'm also, you know, I'm 57, man. So like back then there wasn't any women's sports really other than school, you know, where you had there were no clubs. There was hardly any soccer. It was just starting. There was field hockey and softball and basketball. So I played that. And then I got to Italy and I started playing soccer because that's all they had, which was, but it was awesome. So I got really hooked on it there and then came back. And then so that was my fall sport and I played goalie. And then I played basketball for a little while and that was kind of a weird fit for me, but ended up playing ice hockey, which was my dream because I was like totally, street hockey. We played in Boston or in, the suburbs. And we're talking like 1972 Bruins, man. I could tell you like how much Bobby Orr weighed, I was into it. But again, there were never any teams, and I'd always be like, I hung out with boys and I don't like to toot my own horn, but I was a pretty good athlete. I was always one of the better athletes out of the group. And I just continued that way. And in the spring, I would play softball, but I was left-handed. I'm actually ambidextrous, but I batted and threw left-handed. And I always wanted to play like infield, and they would never they don't let left-handers play infield, So I was like, what the fuck, man? So, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. So I ended up in high school playing lacrosse and loved that. And this is back the wooden sticks, days. And so then when I got to college, I went to Skidmore College. I wanted to go to a liberal arts college because I was studying art, instead of applying to art schools. I wanted to play sports, No art schools really have, they have intramural teams, but I wanted to play intercollegiate. So ended up going to Skidmore, which was a good liberal arts school with an art program. So played soccer, ice hockey, and lacrosse. Okay. But I played goalie in soccer and ice hockey. And then I spent like a week doing the lacrosse goalie thing. And I was like, dude, that is a very hard ball. All right, man. Yeah. Like that's like work, and you don't have the padding that you have in ice hockey. I was like, I'm out of here, So I ended up playing center in that, and I love that sport, man. That's a great sport. Did you ever play lacrosse?
No. What is lacrosse? What is it? Is it like a mix between soccer and ice hockey?
Come on. You don't know what lacrosse is? Where are you from, man?
No,
Where are you from?
Oregon. I do. You have that weird. You have that stick.
It's like actually a game originated by, I believe, I'm not clear on the tribes, but American Indians in Western New York area in the Mohawk Valley. It's a sort of, you know what jai-alai is?
No.
Okay, it's a racket kind of stick. So imagine a stick, maybe 3 feet long, with the top of it looks like shaped like almost a cyclone shape. Okay, like a triangle, but cute, with a bag, like a net that would catch a ball.
So do you get to plow people over legally?
Yeah, well, in women's, it was actually at that point pretty civil. And it still is. Men's lacrosse is very different. They were, padding and gloves.
Because you talked about 3 sports, and 2 of them were the sports that I played: basketball and baseball or softball. But the other 3 sports that you actually played are all pretty physical sports, right? I mean, you get
I'm a definitely physical person. You nailed it. So going to something like fly fishing was kind of like, literally that whole transition it was very hard for me to transition from team sports, which really shaped me as an individual too, which I think was actually a very good thing as far as learning lots of your life lessons and whatnot. A great way to grow up, and I was lucky. I had a lot of good friends from that I'm still friendly with, and but when I got out of school, I'm like, now what do I do, man? I don't have like 10 people around to do, and I also like just beat the shit out of my body, and but I loved it. I loved every minute. I was like the kid that folded their uniform the night before and laid it out, man. I was like. But I was, also, I had some fun too, I wasn't like straight and narrow. But I would say like for me as a 57-year-old woman, now looking back, like to me, it was kind of like bittersweet because it's amazing. In fact, I took a very small plane here today from Saranac Lake, New York, and there was only 3 people on the plane. The plane only seats 10 people. One of the people on the plane was a young woman in high school, and she had hockey equipment with her. And we were talking, and she was going to play for a junior league team. I mean, which is so cool, that there's that opportunity for women. And there were no opportunities for women in sports other than college when I graduated. And to see now what's happened with soccer and all sports, there are national teams. And I'm not saying I was good enough to play any of those, but it would have been cool. I think soccer, I might have had a chance at least for a tryout or something, but it would have been like a cool goal or something. I think I would have definitely gone in that direction if there was something there for soccer at least. But then, you end up doing the fly fishing thing and, but I was also an artist.
Yeah,
too,
where does that's what I want to check on because we kind of let's unpack the art just for a second here before we get into some of the fishing. I mean, Yale. When the first thing you hear Yale grad school, I guess I just think of a lot of money and like some uppity thing. I mean, why? So first, where did art? Like, why? How'd you get into art? Why was that? Why was that your thing?
Well, both of my parents have great artistic ability. My dad is a designer, and now he's retired and he's an artist. And my mom she kind of was a closeted artist, but she's a great painter too. And I just, I think I had that tendency when I was a kid, but I was also a kid of the 70s, man. I would just watch TV as much as I could. So I remember like some of my fondest memories were like laying on my stomach in front of the TV, like coloring or drawing. And I was like just addicted to Mad Magazine. I would probably attribute Mad Magazine to like me learning how to draw because I would just copy everything and learn how to, whatever. That's what I did. And then it was always, I never thought I would go into fine arts. I also have an affinity for, people might turn the podcast off after they hear this, but Broadway musicals. And, so we just lost half the audience. But anyways, for a while there, I thought I might become a scenic artist. And whatever, I just ended up in fine arts, and I kind of you can't judge a book by its cover, man. It's funny, but it was interesting to have like both sides of the spectrum like that. Not that there is a spectrum, but it is sort of true. I mean, stereotypes are true for a reason, right? So a lot of artists aren't the most athletic. Or that's not exactly true. But like, for instance, at Yale, I was like, dude, let's go to the Harvard-Yale game. It's going to be awesome, and because how famous is that, right? That's like the first tailgate. And everybody else is like, yeah, whatever, man. I'm gonna watch this plant grow instead or something. But you know what I mean? Like I was like, no, let's do it. But so I'm sort of a living controversy anyways, because I'm redheaded. I've never met you in person, but I look like I could win, like a Luck of the Irish contest. My last name is Finn. And if I wore a green turtleneck and an Irish knit sweater, I could be like a poster girl. Although not anymore. I'm too old. But I'm not Irish. I'm Jewish. I grew up in suburban Boston, so I'm completely like not what I look like.
Gotcha. No, this is great. Okay, so
in 360 degrees, man. So It's all good.
Okay, so we have a good we have a good background on you here. Well, I do want to get into a little bit on the fishing. And we'll come back to this if we have a little time at the end. But whatever. One of the things I wanted to because I haven't ever been in the Adirondacks, but in the Ausable and all that. Can you explain what that is like, that area, just to someone who maybe has never been out there? I mean, why is it so? Because it's kind of is it a destination spot that people come from around the country to go there?
Well, kind of, sort of. First of all, it's Ausable.
Oh, Ausable. There you go. Thank you.
Now, wait. No, now I'm going to give it to you because in Michigan, we have another river spelled exactly the same way. and that is the Ausable.
That's why I said that, because I've interviewed some steelhead people, right?
Yeah. And so we are the Ausable. So we are actually the west branch of the Ausable. And basically, it's a freestone trout stream coming out of the Adirondack chain. It's a, I would say, medium-sized river, a sort of a typical freestone stream that you would find in the Northeast, whether it was Maine, New Hampshire, or Vermont. It has a pretty good vertical drop from start to finish. It runs north into Lake Champlain.
Oh, okay. And can you explain freestone versus the other types of rivers you have there? What is a freestone?
Yeah, sure, man. Well, a freestone river is just a river. Generally, well, I'm no biologist, so I don't want like any haters coming on me here, man. But it's a mountain stream that is fed generally from tributaries and rainfall. In other words, there's no supplemental water coming from anywhere. Like the next thing that I'm going to talk about, which is called a tailwater. A tailwater is a river that has a dam or multiple dams throughout its system that designates how much and what kind of water goes under or over the top of that dam. So it's controlled flow, generally, unless it's an old dam. Sometimes they just let those go, but is a managed, that's a better term for it in my mind's eye, is a managed water flow. So, and that has, pluses and minuses to it, of course. But so the Ausable it's a beautiful mountain stream. What's interesting about the Ausable is that it really is very psychotic in that it changes its character very quickly. It goes from pastoral, slow, beautiful, not a seam, but moving, but, slow flow to, chaotic pocket water. I would say its most famous attribute would be the pocket water, which is some of the most beautiful pocket water. I haven't done that much fishing out west, but I bet you'll ever see anywhere. Are you a skier?
I'm kind of snowboarder a little bit, but
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So generally when I take clients out, I say this. I say that Eastern fishing is like Eastern skiing, and Western fishing is like Western skiing. So you're out west and you're like, oh, it's another sunny day and we just got 24 inches of powder and I'm going to go out and I don't even have to wear a hat because it's so nice out.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, I just floated the Green River and caught 35,000 20-inch trout. And it was like, I just learned like 3 days ago, but like, I think I could do better.
Is it not that easy? Oh, is it not that easy, Becky's?
Dude, come on, man. This is like...
it's like next level graduate school.
Are you a steelheader?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like sort of a voluntary beatdown, okay? In other words, like, okay, so I just like walked my ass off and waded like some of the most unbelievably hard water for 9.5 hours, and I caught one 8-inch brown, and it was awesome.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. So with your clients, you have to be good with their expectations then if they're coming from.
Well, I mean, it's not always like that, but I mean, it's harder here. I'm not trying to make any excuses at all, but now I'm not saying the quality of the fish. Now on the Ausable, I would say the Ausable is a destination for many reasons. It's historic, first of all. Okay, in the history of fly fishing in this country, which obviously starts in the Northeast. Okay, it is one of the places you read about. If you pick up Ray Bergman's book called Trout, the West Branch of the Ausable and parts of it, the place, one spot I like to fish called the bush country, where 5-pound trout are not uncommon. I mean, that's not true anymore.
Yeah.
I would say that it's a real amazing, what do they call that? Canary in a coal mine.
All right.
As far as what's happening with climate change, for sure. Does that mean there's no good fishing left? No. But it's very vulnerable and very, it's very, that's the best word to describe it. It's like very beautiful, very hard, it is one of the more beautiful streams you'll ever fish, for sure.
Yeah.
And there are some big fish in there. And you can be bad or good and catch them. I mean, it's challenging, I guess is a great word for it. Another reason to visit that area is we have multiple rivers and, of course, tremendous flatwater fishing as far as any species, warm or cold, whether it's bass and pike or, big brook trout and whatnot, which we also do. But the rivers, and there's, you got to work a little harder sometimes and find some stuff off the beaten path. And it will really surprise you. I mean, which is cool because you think you know something. You're like, I've been there, I've done that. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, out of a stream that's, 9 feet wide, you'll get a 20-inch wild brown, boom.
Cool.
And so it's, expectations are.
Is that the species?
Whatever, man.
Is that the species that you're mostly targeting or out there? Do you have brooks too, or what?
We have brown, brook, and rainbow. I'd say mostly brown and brook trout.
And
a
rainbow?
lot of some rainbow. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and in the rainbow, I guess. They're still being stocked out there.
Yeah. We have a lot of stocking in New York. One of the things about the Ausable is it's very susceptible to anchor ice and climate change as well. So we have the extremes on both sides. It gets very, very iced up. I'm not sure if you know what anchor ice is, but it's very detrimental to trout population. And then, unfortunately, because we are relied mostly on tributaries and rainfall, we are also we can get some very warm low water too. In the last few years, I've seen it. So that leads me to talk about the climate change thing. And
do you believe in climate change?
No, it's beyond being funny for me now, man. I'm like, dude. Last year I was very fortunate, and I got invited on a trip to New Brunswick in Canada to fish the Restigouche River, okay, very well-known salmon river for salmon at the end of July, which should be pretty good time. And I decided to drive up there. It's really not that far from me. It was like a 9-hour drive or whatever. To the north, of course. It was, the water temperature there was 78 degrees.
Yeah. That's pretty hot. There's not too many salmonids that can.
Oh, we didn't even fish actually. Yeah. A little bit in the morning. Actually, I did learn that the Atlantic salmon has the highest temperature tolerance of any salmonid, which I did not know. But still, it wasn't cool, man. It wasn't great. It was depressing as hell. It was 94 degrees temperature.
Wow. Yeah.
We were basically swimming in the home pool, hanging out. I was at a beautiful place, a beautiful lodge with a great group of people. And that's where it really became, well, it's always been, I think, all about the hang. It's all about it's not really about the fishing. And that's a time when you really find that out, man.
Yeah. And the hang is kind of like the Hawaiian hang, or the just kind of chilling, drinking a beer, hanging out.
Well, not always that. It's a lot of things, I think. It's sort of the whole process, really. It's from when, it could be at some kind of clinic you went to where it started, and you took casting lessons and you meet all these people, or it could be like your fly tying night you go to every week, or it could be a trip you take with a certain group, or like just standing in the water waiting, I mean, it's not, I mean, yeah, catching fish, of course, I mean, dude, but I think it's about like the way, you drove that golf cart off the road in San Pedro Belize or something, I mean, whatever, you're just, it's the journey. And I think, it's funny because I had to read the Complete Angler. Have you ever read it?
I haven't read the whole thing cover to cover, but
why would you really? Unless somebody is going to give you an award called the Izzak Walton Award, and you're kind of like, I guess I better read that book, right? So I read it, and it's actually that's what Walton was like all about the hang, man. It's actually about a trout bum. It's actually trout bum 1753.
There you go.
I mean, I'm not kidding,
that's pretty cool.
It's sort of, but it's a thread, it's like still, I think the things that people, which is kind of cool, like the things that attracted people to fishing then are still hopefully, some of the things, hopefully underlined 17,000 times that attract people to fishing now, other than, this is what I did 7 minutes ago on my phone. Type of thing. Yeah. So now I just opened up a whole nother can of shit for you.
Oh, yeah. No, I know we could. This is good. I think we're on the right track, though, because every time you bring up a new topic, it's something I wanted to ask you. So I think
there you go.
Good. Can you, when is a good time if you're going to go there and want to do some fishing? When would be a good time to hit up the Ausable in that area?
Well, I would say at the Hungry Trout, our season, we open about the first week of May, second week of May, and we'll fish all the way. I mean, technically, the New York trout season ends on October 15th, but it does continue in catch and release waters all season, and you cannot fish all year round up there. But we can sneak in some fishing, late October, early November, depending on what you want to do. We also have great, flatwater fishing for multiple species, salmonids and also warm water. So we have a full service facility. Hungry Trout, I mean, they are the reason that I've amounted to anything, really. I just kind of wandered in there one day and saw this fly shop and a little motel, and they hired me, and I've worked there for over 25 years, and they have just been the best. It's a family-run business, currently run by the second generation that I've encountered, Evan and Caitlin Botcher and Jerry Botcher, who sort of the legacy of the place, have been tremendous people. They're basically family to me, and they really put on a great experience. We have 2 restaurants on the property as well as a fly shop, and it's everything,
That's cool. Yeah,
it's great. It's great. And, I mean, would I go? It's not like the Seychelles Islands, man. Like, before I die. Well, I mean, maybe it is. I don't know what your expectations are, man. And that's really a fucked up thing, too, as far as what people expect. And, I mean, it's a really cool experience is what it is. It's a really cool angling experience no matter what you do here. Mm-hmm. And because it's a very different geography for most people. The Adirondacks, I mean, a lot of people envision or have trouble envisioning any kind of vast, wild area when somebody says New York. You're like, because what do you think of? You think of like fucking New Year's Eve in Times Square when you say New York, And I'm saying, hey, go visit New York City. It's awesome, man. I lived there for 8 years. It was great. But, this area, the Adirondacks, or actually I'm sitting in Boston, but Adirondacks are amazing. And as are the Catskills as well. And I would say, are there destinations in the East? For sure. If you want the sort of, when we say destination, like, am I going to catch a big fucking fish, man? You want to go to the Delaware River, which is incredible. And, any chance I get, I go fish there. And I have a lot of, what, sorry?
Oh, I was just going to say, the destination, what would be your definition of a destination? Because I know you've been to Alaska and some other definitely are. I mean, what is a destination spot? I mean, what counts as, and if you think about North America, I guess specifically.
I think freaking Paramus, New Jersey is a destination, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, if you make it one,
Exactly.
I think that's totally overrated, dude.
Yeah.
I'm like, a little like, I'm losing it on some of the shit that's going on.
Yep.
Like, I mean, guiding for 25 years. Okay. I mean, I've been a few places, and I'm like, president of the, overeducated guide anglers club, slacker, it's amazing. Whatever. I haven't, I'm not the most, I'm motivated for sure. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not a great marketer, whatever, but I haven't been to the Seychelles Islands yet. Yeah. And I'm like, I know people that have been fishing for like 4 years that have been going to I mean, great. I think that's great. I'm not saying that's not good, but I'm just saying like, you're sort of missing. No, that you're not missing it because I'm sure it's amazing to go there. But I mean, it's amazing out your back door.
Today, the episode that just published is an interview I did with Yaku Lucas, and we talked about the Seychelles. Jeff Currier, who's caught 400 species on the fly. I've got Oliver White. So I mean, but the point is that I was never into going to those places in my life. I mean, part of it was that, I didn't have the funding to spend whatever it takes to get over to, Africa or something like that. But right. I was just never into it. I love steelhead fishing. I love just kind of hanging, like we're talking about, hanging with the guys, doing the trips locally and, around. But the funny thing is now I kind of do have that bug. And I kind of do have a goal that I want to get out and travel a little more. So, and that doesn't mean it's right for everybody. It's just that I think everybody goes through their own thing.
Well, whatever. I think it's all about, I mean, the intention is always good for sure. And I think there's a lot of pressure on people from medias of different types, to do this stuff. And I think that's awesome, for the guys selling it for sure, I mean, and also the people doing it. I'm not saying it's bad, dude. I'd give my left breast to go to whatever. I don't even know where these fucking places are, Farquhar, but I know them. Because I look at my Instagram and I like, oh my God, look at the color of that water. That's unbelievable. I mean, that's incredible. Yep. And I think it's all good. I'm not saying bad to anything. I'm just saying that like, whatever.
It's good. It's good at home
Creek
too.
Behind your house can be unbelievable. It's all about like where your heart is, and I just think like, part of me, I hate to say this, I really hate to say this, but I really feel it's relevant, is that I'm sort of glad that when I, sort of developed as a human being and as somebody in the fly fishing industry, that some of the technologies that we have did not exist, because they just make for such a warped existence of how much, I mean, it's great how much information we see.
Social media.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, dude, like, first of all, I'm not good looking enough to make it on social media now. That's another thing. But second of all, like, I mean, you were just kind of like, not that you were alone at all, but you made relationships, but it was a little harder. I mean, I love some of the benefits of social media as well. It's incredible, but it's also, I think it's a very sharp edge on both sides of that sword, for sure.
Have you seen the new thing they have? It's like a back brace that you put on that helps take care of your issue you have because you look at your phone with your head down. They have these new
I have 4 of those because I have 4 dogs and they're called shock collars.
There you go. That's awesome. That's exactly what we need. I mean, if you're bumping, I heard something about New York City.
Here's my idea for $1 million invention. I used to be a ski instructor, right?
Yeah.
And I'm actually a telemark skier, but I instructed beginners and whatever intermediates in alpine as well at Whiteface Mountain, where I live, which is incredible. And, one of the things about skiing is people like to lean back because you're in this really stiff boot and you couldn't be anywhere further from the truth. You need to really be forward, but not bent. Basically you have to have your shins touching the tongue of that ski boot. And that's how you have contact and control over the skis and your center of mass, blah, 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 blah. But I was like, dude, I'm going to make like a thing that goes on the back of the ski boot. So whenever the back of your calf touches it, it goes, like you feel a little like what you're talking about, same idea. They have one for slouching.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
Then I could have avoided one of the 17 surgeries that I've had, but I'm not 17. I'm kidding. But no, I've had my share of health issues for sure, and that's into the whole thing of. I do want to say this. I really April Vokey wrote a great thing about being a guide. So you want to be a guide, blah 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 blah. And I think she really covered a lot of very relevant issues on that. Yep. I would like to add to that being a guide, because now it looks so sexy and everything on Instagram but it's like, dude, you better figure it out. Like, what are you going to do in the winter? How are you going to pay for your health insurance if you have it?
That's right.
What happens when you get sick? I had cancer.
Oh, wow.
What happens? I had a knee replacement that went bad. I had to have 2 of them on the same knee.
Jeez.
What happens when you can't work, when your body? So what happens when you lead a life of crushing your body?
Yep.
And then you get older. And shit, you can be the best person as far as taking care of yourself. I was not. Believe me, anybody that knows me knows that. But shit happens, so
right.
It's so real sexy to be like, I'm on the cover of blah 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 holding this, and what happens like when you can't make your mortgage payment because whatever happened to you. I don't know. That's where like people need to and a lot of people do it and then make it happen, but it's not for everybody.
No.
It's not like this blanket thing that everybody can do it, and it's not really even about fishing. It's about being with people,
exactly,
and relating to them.
Well, that's why,
like I'm telling, it's like the hang, dude. That's the hang.
That's why I think I'm glad you said that, because I do occasionally touch on, in these interviews a little bit on how people have made it in fly fishing, and because I'm interested just to hear how people have done it. But that is a good point that you got to think about those things before you get into it. I was going to ask you if you had a tip for somebody new to it, but I think that's probably a good one. Just realize that.
Oh, my tip would be to like marry into a rich family, which I did not do. But, because you better have a way to make some money, because you're not going to make a lot of money.
Well, now given that,
Yeah. But that's not everything. I'm not saying that's everything, but I'm not saying a lot of money. I'm saying like enough money.
Yeah.
Depending on where you live.
That's it. Yeah, I guess if you live in wherever, Hawaii or New York City, you need to make a little more money than if you lived in Wisconsin, probably.
Or maybe live in a place that has, or travel as many guides do. Part of me was kind of like, dude, I never thought I'd be a fly fishing guide. I'm like, I got in there really late, actually, comparatively to what people are doing now. But if I were younger, I would certainly absolutely work like and there are very few people that do the whole season, like worldwide. And that's right. Yako does, he does a lot of destination stuff, but there's a million guys that we've never heard of that are doing that and working their balls off doing it. And, and making a living. And they have a home that they're at like 9 days a year, and those are the people, and it's not just guys. There are some women doing that too. And, I don't mean any bad by that at all, but, that's what it's about. It's not a glamour job, man. It's hard. It's really, you're living on the edge of, but it's, it's a choice, and I'm, would I make a different choice? I don't think so. Maybe I would start it earlier, because I would have loved. I did work in Alaska, which was truly amazing.
Yeah, I wanted to get into that too.
Yeah, it was fucking incredible. I was very lucky with that. But I would have done like the South America thing in the winter, because I'm a trout bum. All, give me that 24/7. I worked in that fly shop in New York, right? And
was that the defunct,
many years ago.
Was there a defunct fly shop in there? Is that the Manhattan Custom Tackle?
Yeah, it's called Manhattan Custom Tackle, and it was kind of like the underbelly of fly shops ever to exist, because New York is known as New York for sure, and we have the Urban Angler, which is a fantastic shop, really like the Bonwit Teller which is a high-end department store, sort of a boutique department store. There's only one. There actually are a couple. There were, but it's not. It's like a Barney's. It's not like a Sears. It's like a very nice, probably the nicest fly shop in the country. Beautiful, well appointed, everything high end. And then there was us. We were kind of like, not primarily a fly shop either. We were rod building, and we had conventional tackle and everything, and it was cool. And I worked the front. And then the guy that owned the place worked in the back, and this was at the beginning of the internet, and we sold everything from, New York fishing licenses to marabou to custom made, beautiful rods. They made beautiful rods of all kinds.
When did the shop open up? When did
the guy that started the shop he's a great guy. His name is Phil Koenig. And when he started the shop, he started it in fucking Chinatown in a loft.
Do you know what year it was?
It had to be.
Just guesstimate?
Guesstimate would be maybe early 80s.
Well, my dad had a fly shop, but before it was a fly shop, it was called Stewart Custom Tackle. And you're describing exactly what it was. He had a lot of fly fishing, but he had a lot of tackle. Rod building was big, and it was just a custom service. But it sounds very similar.
Where was that?
In Oregon, outside of Portland.
Yeah, man, this guy he was an amazing rod builder, unbelievable, And he would grow a couple of his fingernails extra long.
Sweet.
Like his pinky and the other whatever, I don't know, ring finger, I guess. And he could like lift up threads with those nails.
That's awesome.
While he was, all on a motor thing. He could wrap a rod in like fucking 7 minutes, man. Yeah. And he had this other guy from the Philippines, maybe. That guy was amazing. These guys were amazing. And they would do, whatever. They would do fancy wraps, but they did everything from Conoflex. Do you know what those are?
No.
They were surf rods, dude. They were like from England.
Like big, big rods.
Oh my God. Like a pole vaulting pole. They look like a push pole. I mean, unbelievable to like, whatever, noodle rods, everything. But it was brutal, dude, because we'd be like in New York, a lot of these businesses, even the Urban Angler itself, which is a beautiful store, is on the second floor of a building. So you could walk right by and not even know it's there. Okay, you have to know it's there to go there. So, think about it. If you're a retail store, how hard that is, right?
Right.
And so we were the same way. So, like literally, some days, I would, Z out the register. We made like $42.07, and the rent was like $2,000, this was a long, okay. So then the next day, like some guy and it was on the second floor. So this was a really like the logo was, imagine the red circle, like the No Pebble Mine. Okay. The No Pebble Mine, the red circle with the slash, right?
Yeah.
So that was there. And then there was a bait hook under the slash, okay? And the logo said Manhattan Custom Tackle. No small no live bait. Keep screaming children outside. That was our logo. Oh yeah, total way. And this place was unbelievable. I don't even know how I got involved. It was great. It was a great experience. So then the next day after I sold like $43.07 worth of beads or marabou or shit, some dude would get off the plane from Copenhagen and come in and order $25,000 worth of custom made spey. We were making spey rods, and we were the first East Coast dealer for, do you remember, I don't know how old you are, but there were these unbelievable reels from Jack Charlton, which were called Charlton reels. And And he also towards the end, he's passed, but he made the Mako as well, which was how they still exist. But anyways, so we had some amazing stuff, but literally that's how it went. It went from barely a pulse to, boom, and it was crazy in there, man. And it was just so cool. I was exposed to a lot of really interesting people, and I learned a lot. And then I bailed from New York and moved to the Adirondacks full time.
What do you think was the biggest thing that you learned from working there? Let's say one.
Oh, I think that's where the hang started, man.
No kidding. That's pretty cool. Wow.
For sure. For sizzle. That's totally where the hang started.
No kidding.
That's totally where the hang started. Oh, yeah, man. So the back room of that place,
take me to the back room. Just describe what it looked like.
Well, no, you got to go through the front room to get to the back room because I could spend an entire day in there. So it wasn't like.
How big was the shop?
It was like a bowling alley, like one lane of a bowling alley. It was like a railroad apartment without any rooms in it. It was the length of the building. Okay, so whatever, long and maybe 30 feet wide. And then there was a back room and then had windows in front, and up a flight of stairs. And then we had a glass cabinet thing running down 3/4 of it. And this was back in the early 90s, late 80s, and you could still smoke inside in certain places. So the owner was a huge smoker. And I'm not a cigarette smoker. So the place had it was like a bar.
Yeah.
There were ashtrays every 5 feet down the thing. So I could easily spend the entire day. So then they had rod racks full of rods, and he was actually an authorized sage builder.
Huh.
And just beautiful rods, on the rack. And I could wipe them down with a rag, and the whole thing was yellow from nicotine. I mean, I'm sure I'll get lung cancer eventually.
Well, you said you had you said you had cancer.
Well,
right?
I didn't have lung cancer, but yeah probably whatever. So, anyways, then we sold everything from Clouser minnows to big casting lures and rods and whatever up front and reels. And then in the back, he had some machinery, and they would fabricate. First they started making stripping guides for rod building. And actually, they were some of the first people to make titanium stripping guides. They were making their first titanium stripping guides. One of the guys that was his buddy was this guy we used to call Big Jack. He was awesome. And he worked at a machine shop for the city of New York in Brooklyn. The shop itself was 3/4 of a mile long. This guy was a very talented machinist and an avid fly angler. And he could do anything on a lathe, man. He could do anything. In fact, he gifted me an amazing his version of a Renzetti Master vice that's I think even better than the original Renzetti. But anyways, so they would tinker back there, and there were substances flying around the whole place and whatever. And then you'd have a bunch of Puerto Rican guys come in for licenses, and then the next guy that would come in would be Nick Lyons, the writer. His office was right around the corner, and then some guys that were going on a trip somewhere, and they got kicked out of Urban Angler because they were going to, they weren't going to the Seychelles Islands. They were only going to go fish the East Branch of the Croton, so they didn't want to really wait on them. So they would come in, because fly shops are kind of cool, right? They're kind of, people want to come in and talk, so I was good at that. So it was fun, man. But that's where, Tom Colicchio, the chef guy, used to come in and buy stuff.
No kidding.
And because we were right by 14th Street. So, and I learned a lot about technical stuff there. And then I made calls for ordering stuff. And I called this dude out in California that made these fly reels. This was, a long time ago. There was a big explosion of fly reel companies in the United States, especially, that started making pretty decent reels for not a lot of money. And this guy that made these reels, they were called Teton and Tioga. I became friendly with him just from ordering over the phone, and he hired me to start working fly fishing shows for him. So I went to my first like IFTD show, a million years ago in Utah, in Salt Lake. And that's where I started meeting people from the fly fishing industry.
Right.
And I was like, dude, these people are fucking awesome, man. I mean, like, not like New York art world, like, you know, and you are, you know, I mean, they were like really nice people, you know, and I'm like, this is like where it's at, man.
Yeah.
And, ended up meeting a guy at a booth in North Carolina at the first Charlotte show. I had a booth next to him. I had the Tetons, and this guy was the guy that hired me for Alaska, Ed Blank. Great guy.
Right.
I mean, you know, it was like so I started meeting everybody. That's where I met Lorianne Murphy, who you should do a podcast with. She's great. And I met everybody, you know, back in the day. I don't know what the day was, whatever, my day.
And is that when Alaska, so you did a bunch of trips, like 10 years up to Alaska. Is that when that all started?
Yeah, that was probably mid 80s or no, mid 90s.
Where were you headed?
And then
to Alaska?
Yeah. We guided, and my husband Jeff did that with me, actually, and Ed Blank. So there are three of us.
Gotcha.
And we did that in the Katmai National Park in Bristol Bay. We floated the Alagneck River, which is a popular river. Then we did the American Creek, which was incredible. And also the Moraine Creek, which was pretty cool. And we did that, like I said, just for maybe 11 weeks was the most we did, but not a float season is a different season than a lodge season, you know, for sure, man.
That's right.
Hard work.
Yeah, it is. It is. So you had people.
Awesome work, though. Yeah. Awesome work.
Did you have people flying in to meet you up there?
Oh, yeah. We'd meet in King Salmon and, you know, do the trip out of there. And actually, I'm headed back there in the fall. I'm very excited to, you know, it was funny because we used King Salmon as just a jump off point. You know, we would take our float plane. That's where you'd fly from Anchorage, and then fly a float plane from there to wherever we were floating. And meanwhile, you're right on the Naknek River, which is unbelievable, you know. And all these years, I've always been like, look at those rainbows, dude. Look at those rainbows in the fall. You know, they're not steelhead, they're rainbows. And I'm like, dude, I got to catch those, man. So I'm going with a bunch of my buddies, all women's trip, and we're going to fish with Kate Taylor, who also is a Patagonia fly fishing ambassador with me. She's the bomb, and that's going to be great in late September. So I'm very excited about that. Yeah, man.
So you get in there before the snow hits. Oh,
yeah. But it's all two-handed, which I really love. I love the swing flies.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to have you back on for another episode to talk more about some of the fishing tips and stuff, because I think we're not going to have time.
I have the gift of gab. What can I say? I'm the daughter of a salesman. But I was recently at an awards banquet, and there was an auction, a charity auction, and they auctioned off lunch with me. So, you know, we can make it fun.
Wow, yeah. Okay.
All right, rapid fire me away.
Best advice you were ever given that you can remember?
If you're going to make a mess, make a big mess.
Nice. Okay. That's
art school.
Art school. That's right. Good. Yeah. Good. Okay. Jokes were kind of common. Do you hear any new jokes these days?
You know, I'm terrible at remembering jokes. And, you know, I think it has something to do with lots of paint thinner and lacquer thinner and whatever. So, yeah. So the only jokes that I can remember were jokes for when I worked in a children's ski school. So here's one of them. What do you call a fake noodle? An impasta.
Nice.
I mean, you know, so there you go. I'm not on the circuit currently, but yeah.
Other than Grease, what's your favorite musical?
Oh, Grease is, forget it. Dude.
I love Grease.
You just insulted me.
Gonna see eye to eye on this one.
Dude, like you totally fucking, you bummed me out, man.
Was Grease it was a musical, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was a musical, of course.
Was it popular?
Was it what?
Was it popular?
Popular, yes. Oh, of course. Yeah. No, and it wasn't bad. I mean, but I'm a huge fan of a guy named Stephen Sondheim,
Oh yeah.
who is a little more of an eclectic writer. But he wrote, for instance, he's written many of his own musicals. My favorite would be Sunday in the Park with George. But just to give you an idea, he wrote the lyrics to West Side Story. And a lot of other famous stuff. Into the Woods, blah, blah, blah.
What is your favorite? You do you still smoke stogies?
Oh yeah, man.
Do you have a go-to stogie that somebody can find out there if they wanted to? I have a good friend of mine
absolutely.
who loves
If you're gonna come
stogies.
see me, bring me. I would love a box, but they're quite. It's not like a Cohiba expensive, but I like a Punch Rothschild double Maduro.
Punch Rothschild.
Double Maduro.
Okay.
Yeah, it's dark. Yeah.
All right, I'll throw some of these links in the show notes for people that want to check them out. Do you have a favorite either musician or band or type of music?
Well, I would say again, I'm a real. Well, I like all kinds of music. Like my playlist would freak people out because I could go from Broadway, and currently I'm obsessed with. Of course, I went through the Hamilton phase. I haven't seen it yet. I apply for the online lottery almost on a daily basis, but I'm a big fan of. Who couldn't love George Gershwin? I mean, come on, man. He's like the Babe Ruth of American music.
Okay.
Stephen Sondheim, again, I will revert to. But then again, I could listen to the old Who, which my brother, who's just down underneath me right now, I'm talking Keith Moon, man.
Okay.
Like that kind of stuff. I love like the rock from then, and the old Stones and everything. I'm not much of a metal person. Never have been, but I can live with pretty much anything.
What is the old Stones? What would be a song from the old Stones versus the new? You mean like the 60s, 70s Stones?
Yeah. And, Goat's Head Soup, get your yayas out.
Sympathy for the Devil, what was that one?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Back then, just the sort of the beginning of what we, I guess, call the classic rock. But I'm pretty much, I love some of the country. I mean, I listen to Sirius XM. I listen to, of course, the Broadway channel, which to me is like, there were certain things that I would never thought I would see in my lifetime that I've already, seen. Like, for instance, would 90,000 people ever go watch women play soccer? Back when I played soccer in college, I'd be like, no fucking way, man.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah. No.
That happened. We had a black president already. That's amazing. I have a radio channel where I can listen to Broadway show tunes 24 hours a day. I mean, it's actually happening.
Yep.
I'm kidding. No, I'm actually, that's how deep I'm in, man. But I also like, I like the some of the country stations. I like outlaw country, which is, so I could listen to Sinatra. I could listen to the Violent Femmes. I mean, it's all good.
It's all good. Yeah, I'm with you. Okay.
What's your favorite band?
My favorite band is, like you, Johnny Cash, Willie Merle.
Mm-hmm.
I love all the old school guys. I do, classic rock. I mean, I was definitely in a Pink Floyd phase. I love the Grateful Dead.
I like the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, Grateful Dead.
But I'm not like a deadhead.
No.
Like, oh man, in this one, either. Jerry was wearing like a purple shirt, and I'm like, whatever,
No, I love the Dead story because the Dead is cool because I think they only had one number one hit their entire history or something like that. It was crazy.
Really?
Yeah, but the cool thing is that they created this. Your hang, right? They created this hang that.
Yeah, man, exactly.
And that's why the Grateful Dead was powerful. Hang. Totally, and that's why they were so powerful. Is that they said screw mainstream media and number one hits. They just wanted to hang out and have fun. Your top two flies, if you had to pick two for trout.
I would say girdle bug, size 8, probably coffee and black. With brown legs, sort of variegated legs. And then for dry, depends on where I was fishing. I would pick a fly called the Ausable Bomber, which would be a big, bushy, big size fly, or a fly called the Usual. Both flies were originated a half mile from my house.
Oh, cool.
by Francis Betters. So that's a cool thing.
All right. Perfect. And I'll put some links in for those too. How about your top 2 tips for somebody that's struggling catching fish?
I would say, first of all, hire a guide.
Yeah.
Because I do when I go fishing in a place that I've never been. And second of all, like, just sort of go down. I mean, it's a process of elimination, really, right? If you think about it, like, okay, so I'm fishing small flies. I'm not catching anything. Well, how about catching big flies, fishing big flies,
right.
You know, go through I don't even know how to describe that, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, say, okay, if this isn't working, don't be afraid to think outside the box, or don't be afraid to sort of be, you know, very decisive in different, just think about different ways. Oh, here's what I like to say. Okay. And this is true. I actually say this. Before you change the fly, change the way you fish the fly. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I'm fishing a dry fly, I'm dead drifting it. Nothing's happening. Oh, I made a mend and a fish went after it. And then you look at the guy and you're like, so what do you think about that? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, well, maybe they want it moving. Right?
Yep.
I mean, not on the Delaware River, of course, but it's happened, but not too often. But I mean, that's like saying I skittered a fly at the ranch section at Harriman. You know, I mean, like, that doesn't happen. You know, that's like dead drift, you know, on the snake, you know, I mean, like a trout hunter, you know, you're like, that's like the dead drift capital of the world with the Delaware River, you know, as well, size 20 ant or something, you know. But where I live, we have a lot of pocket water. We move flies. We fish flies as if they were alive.
Okay.
But yeah, use that one, man. If you don't, before you change the fly, change the way you fish the fly.
Gotcha. That's good. How about your top 2 resources? That might be a book or magazine or video. Do you have anything out there that comes to mind?
My resources are people, man.
That's a good one. Do you have any top people or mentors that have helped you?
Oh, man. There was this dude named Herb that I hung out with forever. I can't even remember his last name. Nice. He weighed about 350 pounds. He was amazing. And he wore the seal dry waders, okay? Do you remember those?
Yeah.
They were made out of latex.
That's right.
The dude was 350 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about that. But he was fucking unbelievable.
Yeah.
He was unbelievable. He fished like 3 flies all year, you know, and he was just like, he was money. He was money. And he smoked cigars. That's where I learned to smoke cigars. And I would hang out with him. And in the beginning, we would compete for the fishing spots, you know, and but I could run him for sure. But he was a good fisherman. And we were friends forever, you know. There. And I'll tell you what, I think Lorianne Murphy's a badass.
Cool. Yeah. I've heard the name for quite a bit actually, but
you got to talk to her, man. She's the real deal. And one of the forerunners, I mean, absolutely a forerunner for women in fly fishing, not the first or whatever that, but she has a lot of firsts that are quite impressive. And good friend of mine, and she great angler, and just some of that great juju that people have that guide that you swear you drive off a cliff with them, but you have no idea why.
Yeah. That's good to have those people. You just
have this way that you trust them. Like, you have guides like that in your life. Like, sometimes I'll even do that, whether it's been a good idea or a bad idea. I have like an intuitive idea where I'm like, dude, you know, we're in one place. I'm like, we need to go to this place. And sometimes it works, you know, and somebody's willing to like say, okay, not like, why are we leaving fish to find fish or whatever, right. You know, right. Or some kind of textbook answer, you know, but like, she's just got an interesting outlook on things and she's good people. And, come on, Joan Wolf, man, she's the bomb, man. She's always, I have the ultimate respect for her, for sure. For so many women, and there's so many women that nobody even knows about. And I've spent some great time with some of the greats. I spent like a day with Lefty Cray at his house, and we did casting lessons, which was, memorable and all that stuff. But that's the great thing about the fly fishing community. There's so many. Everybody is so generous.
Do you remember what you learned from Lefty that day?
A few things. I learned the curve cast. I was doing it, man. I was fucking curve casting like a badass. And then when I, of course, got home, I'm like, I couldn't do it. I'm like, how am I going to remember all this? I also learned how to hit the ketchup on the 57 because we went to Denny's for breakfast. And I was having trouble. I'm not kidding you. Having trouble with the ketchup coming out. And he said, hit it on the 57. And he was fucking right, man. Oh, well, he had 101 tips for everything.
He did.
Not just fishing. Fishing. Yeah. He'd be like, when I'm getting off the highway, I always remember the exit before I get off, so I know the exit I get off. In like a half an hour, it was unbelievable with him. Yeah, he was great. He was a great guy.
That's awesome.
Great guy.
Yeah.
They're all great, man. They're all great. We were very lucky. And one last thing I want to say, and then I'll let you get rid of me, is all this stuff we talk about and all the fishing from any corner of wherever you are in the world is wonderful. And we're acquiring a history, and there's a history before us that's really important to preserve.
Yep.
And, places like the American Museum of Fly Fishing, and there's a museum in the Catskills as well, are places that we need to sort of keep track of and maybe help support. Mm-hmm. And, besides all the environmental stuff that we need to get behind, I'm not saying, we have another cause, but we sort of do. I would say, obviously environment in our world comes first, and you should talk to me a whole show about working with Patagonia because they've changed my life in a way that's remarkable. So
I know. I actually, one of my, I know we've been on the right track even though we haven't talked much about fishing, or at least the tips and tricks. I'm happy because, the American Museum of Fly Fishing I've wanted to touch on. I'll put a link in the show notes. And Patagonia, I can tell you if I get, the founder on my show, eventually you'll know that'll be a happy day for me because that's somebody that I'm not sure if it's ever going to happen, but I'd love to chat with him. And here,
I'd love to chat with him.
I know. But on the history thing,
cool dude, man.
On the history piece, this show I hope will be out for many years to come because part of my thing is I'm trying to document that history, and that's a big part of what I'm trying to do. So
cool.
Yeah. I'm glad you threw out a lot of these names today, and it feels to me like this has been more of a hang conversation than a tips and tricks. So I hope that was okay.
Yeah. I can do the tips and tricks thing, if you want, but this is more really my game, whatever. It's all good. Yeah.
Do you have any, well, let me give you two final ones.
Sure.
So I guess in the next 6 to 12 months, is there anything, we can expect anything new coming out? Or you said you've got a trip. Is that Alaska trip coming up?
That'll be in September. Headed to Belize in 2 weeks just for a fun trip, my own trip with Jeff and a couple of buddies. And we're going to visit Lorianne. She lives down there and guides down there. And we're going to do mostly DIY fishing, which is really fun. And that's something I had not done a lot of in destinations like that. And it's pretty cool. It's a whole different deal, but it's really fun.
You hit on you hit on the nail on the head again because, I mentioned the destination, but this season 3 that we're in, I'm trying to, where I can, connect the DIY with destination is the ultimate goal. Because I'm trying to provide opportunities for people that don't have the $5,000 or $10,000 to do the trip. Maybe they can do some of these cool places. So I'm definitely going to have to circle back with you on maybe the Belize down the line.
Oh, Belize for sure. And also the Hungry Trout, man. You can DIY up there. Let's say you live in New York City, and you're 5 hours away. You could do a weekend for 2. I don't even know what it's totally doable. We do packages with meals included and guiding included, and you know, it's very reasonable.
Perfect.
And you don't need $10,000. I think, you know, 2 people could probably do it for $1,000 for a weekend, you know, with 2 days of, I don't even know. I'm not a money person, but, you know, very doable. And you could even do 1 day with a guide and then do your own DIY fishing. Very easy to do on the us. I mean, it's always better to have a guide for sure, but you could easily, you know, have like 27 years of fishing, you know, that you'll never see in a weekend. But to get the lay of the land, I always say get a guide at least for a half day and tell them what you're doing too. Tell them you're trying to get the lay of the land.
Okay. And and so what's your plan for the next, you know, 10, 20 years? Do you have a game plan, or are you just kind of going with it?
Well, you know, I kind of go with it. I'm obviously, we didn't really talk about art at all. That would be a whole nother discussion. I make a lot of art that has a lot to do with fishing. And I'm trying to stay proactive on my health, especially having some ill health in my past, you know, so I hope to stay healthy, which I currently am, and to guide as long as I don't like it anymore. The day that I don't like it, I'm not going to do it. You know, why should I watch you fish, you know? Yeah. But I love it, you know? So to do that and also get more, maybe a little more proactive on trying to get my art out there. I'm not a great marketing person at all. Right. And that's never been my strong point. So try and figure out how to get, you know, more fishing people to look at it and whatever, but to also travel and enjoy anywhere I go. You could get at me through the Hungry Trout as well, Hungry Trout Fly Fishing or hungrytrout.com. And we are both of those are also on the Instagram and Facebook as well. And also I would like to, that's a great place to go. Like if you live in the Northeast and you have a family because nobody talks about that. Like, you know, if you're going to go to a destination, you've got like your buddies with you. What if you have a family, you know, and you've got all these little kids and you can't get away for a week by yourself, you know? So we are actually a great place to go in the Northeast that's got other shit to do that for people that don't fish, for kids, for adults, and not just shopping, you know, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And that's that's the real life things you think about, you know? Yeah. No, not you know, whatever, on an atoll. But I mean, yeah, I think about that, of course. But you know what I'm saying. So it's a real life vacation, and it's also got some pretty good fishing every now and then, you know.
So there you go. If you want to find all the show notes with all the links we covered, just go to wetflyswing.com/72. And if you get a chance, also please leave a rating and a review on for this episode. Let me know what you think of the show. I'd love to read one of these out loud here. Head over to wetflyswing.com/members to find out how to support the show and our member companies. Thanks again for stopping by to check out the show today. I'm looking forward to catching up with you soon and hope to maybe see you on the river or online.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com. And if you found this episode helpful, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes.